Hearing, yeah.
I'd just like to point out that for the last year, you serving as chairperson has been an excellent role model to the rest of the surrounding communities on what it means to be a very good chairperson. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a privilege to be the chair, and I accept the nomination and appreciate it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so I don't have to move my seat. Sometimes you gotta shuffle your seat. Nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Penny.
Nomination by Mr. Frieda for Penny Moran.
Second.
Second by Ms. McElhenney. Any other nominations for vice chair? Discussion on that? Well, I will chime in and say Penny's been a great vice chair and at times has to remind me of things and keep me on my feet, so I appreciate that. She's got a lot of experience, so.
I think we're a really good team,
Yeah.
and I think we keep each other in line, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, all those in favor of Penny as vice chair?
Aye.
All right. Board secretary, which hopefully will have less to do soon. Mr. Frieden?
I'll nominate Angie Cardinal.
Nomination for Mrs. Cardinal. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. McElhenney. Any other nominations for board secretary?
Knowing
Yeah.
full well what you have to put her in for tonight.
And any discussion on that?
I'll just make a comment that Angie's been really good about getting the minutes done and everything like that, so she's been a role model for all of us.
Absolutely.
Ah, thanks.
Thank you.
Very nice.
All those in favor of Mrs. Cardinal?
Aye.
Thank you. Policy committee. At this point, I don't think we necessarily need to
nominations?
nominate or anything. I think we'll just kind of have a conversation. Currently, it's Stan and Angie.
Yes.
Anybody
Is there
not-
anyone that's interested?
Yeah.
I guess, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Is there anyone that's interested in taking one, over for one of us at all?
Well, I would actually just like to make a comment just at the beginning of all of this. I work during the day, and I'd love to be on some committees, but I would like to know, I'd like them to be committees that I can actually attend. So
I think
when
we
you're
have one
talking
in
about
mind.
the assignments, if you could tell when they're usually held, that would help as well.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well,
So
that one's
when's
flexible.
policy usually?
Friday mornings at 10.
Yeah. But it's relatively flexible. I mean, that just
What is it?
happens to be when we
When we
are
all
both available to meet during the day to accommodate Superintendent Vaughn and, try and keep as many meetings as possible within her workday. That was the only reason. But if
Oh,
there's
because
someone-
you're off on Fridays?
I'm
is
off
that-
on Fridays.
Yeah,
okay,
he has a
that's right.
flexible work schedule for Friday. But
Is that a committee that you really have an interest in? Because we could certainly look at a different time if you do.
I do find an interest in it, however, at this time, I don't mind waiting another year as well, just to perhaps learn a little bit more from this end. So going forward, I don't mind if I'm not on this committee, but I
Okay.
think in the future I would like to.
And
Consider-
I'm perfectly happy to stay on it. I can't speak for Angie, but I'm perfectly happy to stay on it.
Okay, Angie, do you want to
Yes,
stay
as
on?
well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it helps to have the same folks because we're kind of.
You know where we are.
This
Right.
whole thing, so I don't think we necessarily have to vote on that. I think just a board consensus that the two of them are going to be, I don't think we have to vote on every committee. Okay, budget committee rep and an alternate. Well, Mrs. Cardinal is currently our budget committee rep. Is that something that you wish to continue to do?
I do.
Okay.
I'll nominate Angie.
Yeah, I think that Angie and Linda is a good
Yeah, I don't mind being
second.
alternate.
And you've currently been the alternate and
Mhm.
have had to go to at least one meeting I know
Yeah, a
of
couple.
recently,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Again, is that consensus of the board to keep Angie on as our budget committee
Yes.
rep with Linda as our alternate? Thank you. Buildings and grounds. This is a committee that hasn't really met too much.
No,
We
since
met, we did meet
Quite a
and
bit
did
for
some
the SAU
walkthroughs last spring to, and I was on that committee. I think, was it just me?
I think it's me.
It was you and Joe last year. So I think this year, I think it's you. Yes,
Yeah, I think this
it's
year
Mrs.
Yeah.
Warren.
We did some walkthroughs to look at space when we were talking about, made the decision to move the SAU to campus. But
And
other than that, what do you foresee this year on that committee's plate, if anything major?
I would say, as we reconvene the Joint Loss Safety Committee, either we would need representatives for that committee, or it would be the Buildings and Grounds people who would be kind of subsumed. They will meet probably once quarterly.
We'll be looking at
Yeah,
performance
contract.
contracting, so.
So as we're doing the performance contract pieces, that's probably going to be a more active committee. But it
I'd
wouldn't-
like to stay on.
I'll stay on.
I mean, I don't know how,
No, that's fine.
unless anybody's itching to get on it.
I'd like to be an alternate, if we could designate two with an alternate, simply because if one of you can't make it, knowing that you both have very busy work schedules,
It's probably a smart thing to do.
then we could maintain two at every
Okay.
meeting.
So we'll have,
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I-
So Mrs.
fine.
Moore and myself will be on the committee with Mrs. Cardinal as the alternate. Okay. Curriculum committee? Is that you currently? No, you.
I was professional development.
Is it you, Stan?
I think it might be.
Hold on, I'll tell you.
I think we-
I haven't held a curriculum committee meeting last
Let's see, so what do I have here? Board.
Do we foresee Melissa?
Actually, you did not choose a representative at this time,
Okay.
but last year.
Do we foresee with NEASC coming a little closer down the pike that we would need to maybe have a committee meeting at some point?
That plus the competency movement.
Right.
Together.
I could see maybe quarterly. I don't think it needs to be a monthly meeting
Right.
necessarily. So,
Do we need one or two members?
I think one should be
One's
sufficient.
probably good, yeah.
I'd be happy to do that.
Stay on it, Stan?
Hmm?
Okay. All right, so Stan will stay on that, thank you.
I can be Stan's alternate on curriculum if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to jump down to the capital improvement, the CIP, just, it's last on my list, that's why I'm saying I'm jumping down, but I'm currently on it, and they've been having meetings at 4, and it's been a little difficult for me to get there.
And that's only been in the last 2 or 3 meetings, because last year we met at 6 or 6:30. So I'm not sure where 4 has suddenly come from, except that it seems to be that most others are on an earlier schedule. But probably won't be meeting again until August.
Yeah.
If it has to remain during the day, I can be the representative if the board so chooses.
And I'm also on that one.
Do you want to be rep, and then I'll be your alternate?
Sure.
And then, I think that would work better,
Okay.
actually, and Ruth Ellen's always there as well, so.
I try to be.
Yeah, well,
I don't get an alternate.
health and wellness,
I currently sit on that. I don't mind continuing.
and when do they usually meet?
They usually, well, we've been meeting at 3 because I can be there earlier during the day, so.
Too early for me.
Too early for you, sorry.
Anybody want to jump on? Nobody's, the kid doesn't mind if Penny stays
no,
on health and
no,
wellness?
that's fine.
Okay,
It's just
thank you,
okay, yeah.
thank you, Penny. And the
Andy,
last one's
would you be my alternate on that one?
Sure.
professional development, which I believe is
I
committee
was
that you're
on, but again, it met during the day.
Meets
at
or
3.
early, yeah. I was not able to make it.
When do they, how often?
3 o'clock once a month.
Okay. And when I was the rep for that committee, and I've said this before publicly, a lot of the time was spent talking about who's up for research, what do we have for information, and I didn't feel like that was probably the best use of a school board member's time. That's sort of an in-house thing that I think that staff in professional development reps deal with. when is a new plan coming down the pike at some point? When does?
Next year, next spring, next April it will be due.
Okay.
And I've been we spend a very small portion of the time talking about the logistical piece of recertification, but we've kind of we're right now in the process of creating a survey to survey technology need for PD, and then we're talking about maybe at the end of the year looking to see what is needed for next year from the teacher's perspective, and getting their pulse on what's needed, so kind of reconfiguring, adding to the scope of what they do currently too, so.
Okay. The time is challenging for you.
It is.
I can take a 3 o'clock, that's fine.
You can? Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that one.
Anybody mind if Penny jumps on that?
Not at all.
Okay.
And I can be your alternate.
All right, thank you. And those are our committees right now. I will say this, and I don't know if it's we've had some athletic committee meetings. I don't know if we want to call that a committee of the board. I don't know. I mean, there is board representation. Mrs. Cardinal and I are both on it, but we've not been there at the same time, even though we can be. Sometimes some of the things we deal with is restorative justice with athletic discipline and taking a look at.
You want to make sure that it doesn't look like the board is.
I want to make sure that should the committee make a decision that a parent appeals, that 2 of us are not involved already in the decision to begin with. So we kind of have been just kind of, we talk to each other ahead of time, do you want to do this one, do you want to do that one? So I don't know if we necessarily have to list it, but.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the athletics handbook is written, it states that the committee is by appointment from the athletic director. So it already says that it's not
Yeah. I think it's just
an appointment
important
by
for the
us.
rest of the board members to
Yes.
know that there is
Yes.
another committee out there that some of us have been serving on. Sometimes some of it has been interviewing potential coaches when there's a vacancy. Mrs. Peabody likes to get a lot of input, so that's been, that Mrs. Cardinal recently helped with that, so. Okay, well, just worth mentioning anyway.
And I actually just have a question,
Yeah.
since we're on the reorganization of the board. I know that you touched on it a little bit, but have we considered having a safety committee? And is that something we should look into?
Yes, it is in the process of being reconvened. So yes.
And in the past, we haven't had a school board member on that safety committee, correct?
It was back when I was heading it up, back in my previous life in the district.
I was on it back a while ago, but I also was on it when it was the PTA, I was a PTA rep as well.
Yeah, we had a PTA rep. I know that Mr. Petrie was on it when I was doing it before. So,
Okay. We probably
I
should
could
put
certainly
someone there.
do it and try and do it like after hours when we have the second shift representation,
right,
and then
it would be something.
Oh.
It is
work
something
it,
I
do you know
would
what I
be
mean? I don't
interested
mind.
Okay. So,
Okay, so you don't
Gets you a
mind
slot.
that?
Not at all.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good.
that works out well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Done with reorganization. Public participation?
Good evening. Blanche Tanner, Farmington resident taxpayer. I just had a couple of things, because I missed the last meeting, but I did want to do a belated congratulations to Mr. Frieda for being reelected to the board. And also hearing your discussion today about reorganization. I have to say that I've served on many committees over my years in teaching, and I know that a good committee starts with a good chair, so I do agree that Mr. Shagnon has done a great job with that.
Thank you.
But I also think that you people, as I watch you here, and sometimes if I can catch you on TV, you do seem to have a nice working relationship, and I agree with that comment that you made also. I am also glad to hear that Mrs. Cardinal is continuing on the Budget Committee.
Thank you.
Put that out there. So that's that. Then the other thing I wanted to just ask, I know this is supposed to be a comment thing, so I'm not asking for an answer right now. If somebody needs to get back to me, that's fine. But if I understood correctly, at the town meeting, town moderator Warren mentioned that all of the school warrant articles passed. I'm assuming that also means the petition article number 14. So I'm assuming, right or wrong, that that amount of money needs to be cut from the bottom line of the budget. Not necessarily the positions, but the amount of money. Not necessarily?
No, the petition warrant article was advisory.
Okay.
What it did say was, the way that it was worded said that the cutting of those positions could save a certain amount of money. I will say that later tonight, because we are to take that under advisement, later tonight, we are going to look at those 4 positions. We're going to discuss the roles of those 4 positions. The superintendent's going to kind of show what those positions do on a daily basis. And she's even costed out some other options in case people were wondering what the cost out would be.
I was just wondering about that
Yeah.
amount was going to be cut, so that's good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
We're not live.
Mrs. Vervile received information that we're not live right now. So let's just
You
pause.
do that again.
You might be taped.
Let's rewind it, take a break.
Are we,
We are not live, but we are being taped.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Oh.
right.
So-
Oh,
And we
because
have
of the
a backup,
crossover.
right.
Okay, that's
We
right.
have,
so he knew that?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for recognizing.
Announce the blood drive either, if you'd like to do that
Thank you
later.
for the
We're gonna do
support.
some, yeah, we're gonna head towards the end,
right.
before we sign off, we're gonna do some stuff. Okay, approval of, any other public? No? Okay. Approval of minutes, March 19th, public session.
So can I jump in?
Yeah.
So the minutes were taken from me, and Jess, I don't think, could read my mind in terms of some of the pieces that were in here. So there's some spelling things, and there are also some incomplete sentences.
All right, so let's put it on the table, I'll motion to accept the minutes as.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mel
Motion by Mrs. Moore, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion.
Do you want to jump in
Do
with
you
what
want to jump in
know?
and know what we already know about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely, yep.
All right, so I had on page 3, assistant teach, I think it should be teacher.
Program, student assistance program.
Okay,
Where was that?
On
Page three.
Page 3, under student services.
Oh, thank you.
And then acronym, I put a note in about,
Yeah.
I think in the first, I want to say in Valley View's board report, there's kind of, students were enthusiastic, and then a dash to list the teachers, but I will make that a complete sentence.
you can throw my name at the end of those too, because I think I added to those minutes as well.
In,
In the public minutes, I sent the public after
Oh,
everybody had gone.
that's right. Okay, yep.
okay.
Yeah.
And I have some corrections too.
Oh, go ahead. I was just jumping in.
On page 4, under the Winnie Dip paragraph, it says it's a group of Trent agers,
Yeah,
but I'm
that
assuming
is-
that's teenagers?
yeah. I will, no, actually, the student's name is Trent Angers.
Trent
So
Angers.
I
Oh,
can, I
okay.
can fix that as well.
Oh, okay.
Very clever.
And then the other one I just had on that same little section, Fitzgerald, is that supposed to be hyphenated?
It is hyphenated, but it's
there's an
missing an
A.
A in the second.
Okay. Perfect.
And Michaela is spelled wrong too. Don't ask me the right way to spell it, I just saw.
I think she spells it with an I,
Does she?
I
Okay.
believe so.
It's just an apostrophe, but
I can double check on that. And then it's missing an apostrophe as well.
Other correction?
The only other one I noticed was on page 6, but it's also highlighted at this time. It says Ms. Motion made a motion, but it's
Yeah.
supposed to be Ms. Moore.
Yes,
Yes.
some of the vote counts are off
Yeah.
on page 2. All of the ones for approving minutes. starting with the third one down, the March 12th public session. It says the motion passed 3-0, but there were 4 members here. Yeah. So that one and everyone
Everyone
after until the principal's reports. Which can be easy to do because the first 3 were 3-0 with 1 abstention.
Right, yep.
So it's easy to type that up. Likewise,
On page 2 under principals reports, they have something rolled out for teachers.
Which page are you on?
Page 2, second paragraph.
Some pushback. Rubrics have been made, and they have an acronym. I think it's for the process, but I will double check with Jess on-
Acronym, okay. Okay, that makes more sense, thank you.
Is on page 1, you know this better than I do, is Alexis's last name spelled correctly? Is that how you
Yes, it
spell
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I butchered that then one day.
It's not hard to do.
It's a challenging one.
On
I grew up with
page
a
8, the motion passed 4-0 with no abstention. It just passed 4-0, there were no abstentions. Or it passed 3-0 with 1 abstention. And on that same page, it said under, and Mr. Michael Moran about the meeting to debrief about deliberating, I think it was deliberative session.
Deliberative session. And that was on the same page.
Yes.
Anything else? Mrs. Cotton?
sorry,
Yeah,
there-
I see it.
there are more with the vote not being quite right. On page 6. Yeah, in the first paragraph, the motion passed 3-0, where the tiers will go into effect immediately. And then when we do the minutes, this is just kind of for consistency, all motions are bolded. Motions and votes, we bold them.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Motions and votes, we typically put them in
Gotcha.
bold font so
Okay.
they stand out. So likewise, the Chromebooks bid,
Okay.
the motion needs to be bolded, and it passed 4-0.
4-0.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's correct.
Right.
First read policies, the motion to accept the policies for a first read, motion passed 4-0.
4-0. That's right.
Under
The
other,
one directly above it, while you're there.
yeah, I already said
I
that.
did.
Chromebooks.
Other as well.
The tiered payment one for yourself.
Yes.
Yep. So just all those.
Yeah, all of
the
those on
votes
page
on that
6.
page, yep.
There's another one at the top of page 7, there's 2 more there. On page 8, going into non-public session, we need the time that we went into or that the board went into non-public session. Sorry, I wasn't here, I can't say we. And that one
May not have put those in.
should be,
I have them, I may not have sent them
oh, right,
to her.
right.
So I'll get those.
So if we could get the times for those.
Thank you.
Right.
Sure.
It's hard to picture the flow of how everything happens when you're not
When
here.
you're not here, yeah.
That's it.
Anything else?
I think spelling out my name, because it just says PM in the non-public session.
Yeah, those are from my notes, so my guess is that she just took that as it
Yeah.
was. So, yeah, I will make sure that its names are spelled out.
Thank you.
No, I think that was the time, at the time PM.
Oh.
She doesn't have the time, instead of AM,
Yeah,
it's
but she doesn't have a
PM.
second either.
Oh, good catch.
No, but the,
Oh, no,
Maybe it's-
Linda seconded it. Okay.
yeah, she's looking for the time.
Oh, okay.
She knew it was in the evening.
Oh, okay, so that's been sorted.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but on page 8 for the motion to go into non-public 3, there isn't a second listed.
Yeah, there is, yeah, the first non-public there is.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Who made the motion?
I
Standard.
did, it was pretty much Linda and I with Linda.
Yeah,
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 it
because
was-
I was taking minutes, so it was Linda.
Right, right, that makes sense.
You're doing so much better, thank you.
Anything
Prep
else?
ahead of time. You did great, considering you didn't anticipate having to do it.
All in favor with the corrections? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
1 abstention? Oh,
That's me.
I'm looking at you. Okay.
Thank you very much for filling in.
Non-public session 1 from March 19th.
So
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion on these?
Just my last
Maybe
name spelled
spelled
wrong,
wrong.
but yeah.
Roll call.
Got it.
Yeah.
We need to know
thank you.
attendees and absentees.
you have to list that on there too?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone who was present.
So we will,
In fact, I was absent.
yeah.
Are you fixing those at the office, Ruth Ellen, or do you want me to fix them?
We can chat about it. And we'll tag team in a little bit.
Okay,
If
so
you
we
want to
got-
share the files with me, I'll do them.
Here's some. I can manage tomorrow.
All right, so we'll fix that
Day
one
off right
typo, and we'll add the attendees. Any other discussion? All those in favor with corrections? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
One abstention?
That'll be the same on that one too.
Okay, minutes from March 19th, non-public session 2.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Cardinal, second by Mr. Frida. We're
Is
gonna
my
have
name
to,
right that time? Make sure I have it right.
Yep, that one's
Okay.
spelled right.
I thought I like blanked it out and copied and pasted it. I won't say I
so
spelled
we're
it.
gonna
Because I
add-
corrected one and missed the other
We're gonna add attendees
one.
to this.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else other than attendees?
It's just grammatical, I think. Mrs. Vaughn shared a list of proposed should be plural reductions or proposed budget
Doesn't it say that?
reductions. Well, it's just not plural. It says
Reductions,
proposed
yeah.
reduction.
Mhm.
In the school boards, or boards, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Which
Any-
one, which others? Reductions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there were several. Any other discussion? All those in favor with corrections? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
One abstention. And finally, the minutes of March 19th, non-public session 3. So moved by Mr. Frida, second by Ms. McElhenney. We're going to add attendees. Anything else on this one? Okay, all those with the corrections? Aye.
One abstention?
Oh, sorry, abstention.
Oh, did she come in late for that?
Thank you, I did not.
All right, thank
I
you.
was home duty.
And we're down to reports, financial reports.
I think we can start with the first one being the revenue report. And just to report on line 13, which is prior year revenues or refunds. Recently, we just received a prior year revenue payment from Unemployment Security in the amount of $11,000, or approximately $11,000. And this is for unemployment benefits that we had, the district had paid for it prior to our joining the Primex program. So it was a payment from 2013 in which we did a settlement, so the money was due back to us. Typically, you wouldn't see that line showing, year-to-date $38,000 in prior refunds, but just want to point that out. And then also on line 21 of our revenue report, we have so far collected the funds from the trustees for the fencing project and also for Henry Wilson's roofing project. We're in the process of also having the server cut over in Hellview, so that's why the program isn't being viewed live. But once that project is completed here in the next day or two, we'll be looking to submit it to the trustees of the trust funds and have them reimburse the general fund. That's all I have for revenues, unless there's any specific questions anyone has.
I had just noticed that there's still $17,000 in sick day buybacks, and that caused me to wonder, how are we looking for the folks that have retired? Are we?
Oh, okay. Well, all right, I'll move on to the general fund then, if there's nothing else on revenue.
Oh, sorry, I thought we started there.
Nope. But I'm glad to, because I did include that piece in our
Okay.
report. So essentially, as of this particular run of this report, March 30th, we still have 6% of our budget that's unspent. It's about $882,000. But there's some expenses that we definitely need to plan on between now and June. And one of them, you're absolutely correct, is about the sick day buyback. I have an allowance that I've built in on my spreadsheets as I'm doing my projections right now for about $34,000 as we start, as we know who is retiring, though, as that information comes forward. You know, that number could change, but that's definitely a number that we do go in and manage and keep an eye on. Those funds are paid out towards the end of June, so we don't do an encumbrance. You're not going to see any activity on that for a couple of months until the end of June. Also on lines 208, 209, and 210, which is on page 8, you'll notice that there are some sizable balances for the academic extracurricular. Those balances total about $40,000. And once those assignments, the teachers have completed those assignments and they submit for it, those will also be paid out in June. So these are things that I have to earmark and plan for. So that's why you don't see encumbrances. It's when the assignment is completed. Same concept really for line 378 and 388. We have some, let me see, let me scroll down here. This would be in the area of curriculum. So in the area of curriculum and instruction, bottom line, you'll notice in that particular function, there's about $28,000 remaining. And again, those are areas that we're doing some workshops. We still have some people who have course reimbursements to submit. So we're expecting, we're earmarking that those funds will be needed at the end of this year. Another line, line 468. I think I may have brought this to your attention before, but it may jump out again. Line 468, the administrative assistant to the superintendent, there still shows $9,300 remaining. But she is on an hourly basis, so she only works 27 and a half hours a week, and she submits a time card. So we draw down from that and approve the hours when she's working. So she's not on a salary, and she doesn't have a contract. And then lastly, we do have some projects that we'll be discussing it and working with Mr. Gordon in their facilities and maintenance department, and anticipate probably about $80,000 or so of things, whether it's repairs, supplies, or just general work being done between now and June.
Much of which can't be done when there's snow on the ground.
Right, right. So, you know, you'll see a lot of things as, hopefully if the weather holds up, they'll be doing some work outside, working on the fields, you know, doing some thatching, you know, the sand removal and things like that, so. Are there any questions before I continue on? Any questions on accounts?
Just in regards to the general fund, just really quick, the encumbrances, does that indicate any bills that would be paid after June 1st? So anything that would be, so any bills-
After June 1st is still our current fiscal year.
Okay.
So yes.
So that's why there's an encumbrance on that
Electricity
line.
would be the year-long encumbrance.
Okay.
We would anticipate receiving a bill for the services for some of June.
Okay.
And electricity is probably a good example that we always make certain that we're only paying 12 bills. We don't try and slip in the 13th bill. It doesn't, the accounting doesn't mesh. It doesn't pass audit. So it's always 12 payments of electricity in that given fiscal year. So.
The only other question I had on the general fund was between lines 261 and 267. They are for community education. We haven't used any of that. Are we planning to at all this year?
Those are pieces that I've cut out for next year, and as I had tried to pull together folks either to run those classes. I haven't had a whole lot of folks saying, yes, me. I also haven't had folks, when I've put out, here's what we were thinking, I haven't had responses going, oh, yes, I want to take that. So that has languished, which is why I cut that for next year.
What were the classes?
We'd looked at some resume classes, we'd looked at some basic literacy classes, not wanting to necessarily, do calculus for, the average Joe, but looking to do.
This is for adults?
This is adult, these are community
Yeah.
classes.
And it's being, unfortunately, this line's going to be cut out of next year's budget.
For next year, because-
Is that something that somebody could volunteer to do?
With the CBA, I would need to be very careful, but certainly I could have volunteers from outside the CBA if they're doing something that doesn't fall under what would be taught here by our teachers. That's a possibility.
Are these at night?
They certainly could be.
Oh, boy.
And,
I would love to volunteer to do something like that.
Okay,
I'm just putting
let's
it out
chat.
there.
Because
would love to.
we have not only the space here, but we also, Friends of Farmington has been very gracious to say, if we need some other space, perhaps to work something there as well. So,
Okay. Yeah.
if you have ideas and would like to
do.
run with something, come talk to us.
I need a stage.
The library.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that report? Anything on grant? Did you do, did you have one more?
We've just done the
I'm sorry.
expenditures, yeah.
Yep. I just wanted to give her a chance in case she had some specific lines.
No, I think I'm good for now.
Okay, all right. So just to let you know that there are, we just talked about Function 1600, the community education, and, certainly not seeing that anything will actually happen between now and the end of June. That $10,900 is something that would be returned. We're not looking to be reprogramming it. It would be returned to the taxpayers. There's also some other, the school resource officer. Right now, we're looking at a $32,800 savings. We've also had some funds in Function 2150 for speech, for $11,600 that we wouldn't see that we would be reprogramming that. Again, Function 2160, occupational services, another $10,400. And then we had some savings in media, simply because of the hiring in all of these areas. So, that right there is about $90,000 that would also be, that grand total would be returned to taxpayers
Potentially.
at this point.
So just a question, on that portion on this list here, you have school resource and it's 32.
Yeah, you got a little
812.
extra, scratch the zero.
Right, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And getting those figures for SRO took a whole bunch of people, so thank you to those of you who had a piece in trying to get all of that together, because with a grant that starts in October and goes across years and takes this percentage for this year and that percentage for that year, and we pay part and they pay part, and it's been interesting, but thank you.
And just lastly on my report is that the financial audits are completed for 2015 and 16. Melanson Heath is due to come back April 11th through the 13th to be able to complete 2017. My intent is that once everything is, well, first of all, I do have hard copy of 2015 and 16, but to have them come in and present to you the audits. They should be presented to the board, giving the board an opportunity to ask questions and things like that. So, and then with that said, we've had Melanson Heath now since 2008, which is really a very, very long time. And I'll be talking with them about, it's really time for us to go out to bid again and to be able to be looking at exploring and changing auditors, looking for a firm that has done municipality, has done government work. So I already have a list and have started working on that RFP. So stay tuned for that probably mid-May is when you'll be looking over those documents. They'll come to you electronically, and we'll look to approve another auditor. That's all I have.
Any other questions for Mrs. Verval? No? All set? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Student services.
Oh, sorry, just one
yeah.
topic under finance. Last meeting that I missed, the request for
The journal entry?
approval to do the journal entry was discussed and moved and voted through. I just wanted to close the loop with all of you. There was a question because I was the one that moved to table it, and I'll set the information that was sent over.
Okay.
I completely agree with the board's decision.
I just explain to those of you that are viewing, if it looks like we're having back-to-back meetings with the same reports, we kind of are because the board's decided to have more of our district-wide reports on one evening during the month and then our building-level reports on a different evening so that we're not just reported out. And some of it might be not as much to share because you just shared recently, but Mrs. Donetto.
So we did just recently, I'm thrilled to say, actually, we do have some stuff, new stuff to report on, which is good. So paraeducators and some teachers participated in a workshop on March 30th by Constellations Behavioral Services. It was regarding following behavior plans and reiterating the idea that behavior plans need to be followed with fidelity, that all individuals, us, kids, everybody, operate off the principle of reinforcement. And if a child is continuing in negative behavior, then in some way, shape, or form, that behavior is being reinforced, whether consciously or unconsciously. So something to keep in mind. Going forward, it's important to remember that consistency in responding to students with behaviors, and also for looking for teaching those replacement behaviors that we want to increase. So for instance, if a child needs a break rather than, engaging in torture, tantruming or leaving the room, to begin to use that language of, I'd like a break, and then being praised appropriately for doing so. So a big thank you to all the paraeducators and teachers who were in attendance. I really appreciated it, got some positive feedback. So that's always nice to hear as well. Student assistance team has had an increase in numbers. This is our grant through DHHS. The Henry Wilson group of students with substance misusing parents or relatives has 5 students. Newcomers group has 6. Those newcomers are students that are new to a district, or our district. Farmington High School, there are 2 newcomers groups of 6 students each, and there are 5 students who are participating in one-on-one kind of counseling as children of substance misusing parents. We held on March 23rd an Access Care Night. There were actually closer to 11 community organizations that came in and attended from 5 to about 7 p.m. Turnout was really low, but in having connections with people after the evening, there were still at least 3 individuals that got connected for services somehow. So I don't know how it happened, but it did. So I'm really thrilled to hear that. And I really want to thank staff members that came out. Don Curtis and Titus, they were there representing a community organization. Linda Sheff and Sarah Gould, who also made it in attendance as well. So I really appreciated that. 10 home visits over the course of this time period from March 16th to the 30th. That's a lot. We typically don't have quite that many. But they were in regards to attendance, needing signatures for paperwork, checking up on some court-related things, just to make sure we had all of our ducks in a row. There were 5 families court involved due to neglect petitions. That represents 10 children, and we're joined on, I think it's up to 7 delinquency cases now. And we do have 4 truancy cases in the courts. And finally, a big thank you to everyone in the special education staff. They've been working really hard. And for whatever reason, this 3-year cycle, we have a lot of students who are in the reevaluation process and a number of students who've been referred through Head Starts and early supports and services. So it's been a challenging year in terms of meeting the evaluation cycle. And that's part of the reason we've been doing home visits to get some signatures that we've been lacking. So a big thank you to all the people, related services, school psychologists, case managers, who've been doing a noble noble job trying to make sure everything's done in a timely manner. And then your figures for special education are on the next page. We did have one additional out-of-district student who was reunified with a parent who was already in an out-of-district placement. We continued that placement with the anticipation the child's going to graduate this year. So that sums it up at this point.
Any questions? I have a couple.
Sure.
How many case managers in pre-K?
2.
2. And when you always give us the breakdown of how many students 9 to 12 are part of the life skills program. Is that a separate case manager for those students?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I just have a question on reevaluation. Is there an opportunity to reevaluate and kind of split this group up so that, can you reevaluate early, I guess is the question.
You can always reevaluate early. We can also do what's called reevaluation via file review, so we could determine that we maybe don't need to do each and every assessment, that there might be some that we can simply perform by looking at the previous data and then observing the child in class. Or, for instance, it's a speech assessment, we might say the child really still clearly qualifies for speech. And then our speech pathologist could simply do an observation, say, these are the things that we're still working on. I do still believe that the child is. So, yeah, we've been attempting to do some of those things.
Off the top of your head, would you know the breakdown in each grade level 9 through 12 that have life skills kids?
Not off the
Reflect.
top of my head, but I
Okay.
could look and find out for you.
Thank you. Okay. Curriculum, I don't know if there's much of a new report. I know you started testing, but one of the things that I had asked Ms. Vaughn to do was put curriculum sort of back on here tonight, as Melissa did a really nice job with the report last meeting with all the assessment information. It was a lot of information in one night, so I wasn't sure if the board, well, I'll let you tell us, give us your update, but then I wasn't sure if the board had any specific questions about some of that data that we received.
Right. My update was kind of in regards to the assessment. We did SAT, ended up going off without a hitch at the high school. Actually, after having done that process for 3 years before, I honestly hadn't seen such a seamless assessment protocol followed, and I think, just having having everybody in the building focused on one sort of assessment at a time at the high school, just the PSAT 9 for the freshmen, PSAT 10 for the sophomores, and then SAT plus the ASVAB for the seniors. I think it just really set that assessment environment, so you could hear a pin drop. I was assigned, the counselors asked me to help out with the PSAT 9, so I can speak specifically to that freshman class, and every single one of them, I'd say, 99.9% of them put their best foot forward and took, even though it's not an accountability assessment, they knew, they had that, and I think, that'll be successful moving up, and I think establishing that expectation for the staff and the students will really kind of set the stage for when they do take the SAT in their 11th grade year. I think I learned, too, a little bit about the PSAT, and there's a component where they'll let you keep the PSAT test booklet. So when they get the score report back, students and teachers alike can make some instructional decisions, or, use it as a tool to kind of show the students, this is how you find out, where you went amiss, and this is where you did really strongly, and then comparing that. So I think this is the first assessment where I was waiting to package up the test books, and then I read in the manual that you keep them until their score reports come back. So, wow, that's a huge instructional tool that I wasn't even aware existed. So I'm excited when the reports come back to just show the math and ELA staff to, here are some ways you can utilize this, to the student's advantage and to your advantage. So that was new information. The Henry Wilson started today, 4th grade. It's SAS, Student Assessment System. And that also, trying to run an online assessment with students that are, 9 and 10 years old is, something they did very, very well. We kind of broke it into smaller chunks. It's, 2 hours per subject area. And we broke it into like an hour and 15-minute chunks, so as far they could get their breaks in, and kind of catered it to a younger population, so they weren't sitting idle for as long. And I think we broke it up into 2 sessions per test, so a lot more sessions but shorter, just for the purpose of attention at that age. So we're going to mimic the same schedule with 5th grade. Again, students were pretty focused. We tested 2 classes at a time to try to minimize the competition for bandwidth. I hear last year it was I think they attempted to test more kids than the internet could handle, and I think there were just outages. This kid got kicked off, and then this kid got kicked off, and this kid got kicked off, and it might not have anything to do with that, but we just we aimed to try to do two classes at once, and we only had one. And I don't even think it was bandwidth related. I think it was something on the Smarter Balance or student assessment end that one teacher got logged off inherently and had to log back in. But other than that, all day long today, we had no technology glitches at all. Knock on wood for tomorrow.
Yeah.
We had the browsers updated. I've meeting with 4th grade or 3rd grade rather this week to prepare them like I did the Henry Wilson teachers, talking about the accommodations and the structure of the assessment, the pieces, and some instructional tools they can use. They put out a vocabulary list for, which is new this year. We found and discovered it and shared it with teachers immediately, but just a vocabulary list of here are some things your students might see on the assessment that they might not see in everyday classroom language, and calling things, inferences and stuff. They might not do that in 3rd grade, but now they know that that's, a word that they're calling it on the assessment when they go and take some teachers might call it making connections or making predictions and, that kind of thing. And so just the vocabulary specific to the assessment will be shared with them, just, so they're aware of what it is. And I did it with the upper grade levels as well already, and they already saw some words. Oh, I'm glad they put this on here because I call it something totally different. We talk about it, but when they assess it and call it something different, it throws kids.
Sure.
throws kids. So we found the tools and shared with them, and I think things are progressing. I'm hoping, again, we only have so much control over how the effort students put in, but the principals and the teachers have done a lot of work with initiating the importance of this, and trying your best and putting your best foot forward. And the rest is any questions about the information I passed out last week or
I wasn't sure if
last
anybody had a
meeting.
chance to digest it more and had any specific questions about last week's information.
Yeah, I did, and I watched back, your presentation. It's fascinating. I just think we need more time to be able to compare. I'm not sure that we can really make meaningful, suggestions for how to improve. And if I can just share, my philosophy when it comes to assessment in this manner is it's one measurement for our students as to whether or not our students are successful, will be successful, whether or not our school district is successful, and whether or not our schools are successful. It is one piece. It is not the end-all, say-all. And really, I think a bigger telling is our students, once they graduate, which is hence where the time aspect comes in, are they equipped and ready for the life that they choose to lead? And to contribute in the way that they truly want to.
One of the things that I wanted to ask was, and this could be a long answer, so I don't want you to force a long answer, but I mean, give us a sense of when you get all that information, then what happens to it? Obviously gets reported out to us as it did, last time. Talk a little bit about, at the building levels, what we do.
I can speak to what, I mean, having only been partial through the process, like my intents for furthering professional development around it.
And it might be a fair question for building principals, and I'm
Right,
sorry, but just
yeah.
maybe just in a nutshell.
I know for a fact they, address them at the data meetings. I haven't been part of one this year where once the data comes in this spring, I'm thinking it might be 2 or 3 week process for the data to come in, which is faster than usual. I read an article on their site that even the essays this year are scored by artificial intelligence, which is a little scary. But they're just
interesting.
And they've done a lot of protocols to instill that is a valid a way to assess. And I think if there's any kind of discrepancy there, that it's booted to a human score. But because of that, it should be pretty timely feedback as opposed to, in the past, it's not always instant. So I think this year, I'm hoping that before the teachers even leave for the summer, we can, while it's relevant, they can kind of see, engage, and first posing the data available to the teachers to see, especially to ask the question, answer the question, are these reflective of what you see in class? Because sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes it is yes. But if it's, and then as well as that information pertinent for their next year's teacher too. So I'm not sure at which time of the year they do the groups for next year. But if they can get that, if the classroom teachers for next year can have that data, just to kind of, not necessarily group kids at this point, but to see which is, the general deficient or the weaknesses and strengths of the group as a whole, and possibly cater instruction to, okay, what do we need to start the year out with? What are the have-tos before we even get into, these kinds of things? So I'd like to see them have this data available for the end of the year data meetings as they approach closing out their year and preparing their group kids for the following. Another thing it's helpful too is, it's not a brand new assessment in that it's the same vendor, but they do use a different item bank. So what they've been used to getting feedback on previously might be slightly different to expose them to that kind of thing. And here's the score on speaking and listening, and well, how the heck do they assess speaking and listening? What kinds of things are they looking for the kids to be able to do? And not that they're going to be teaching to the test exactly, but just keeping in mind, I guess that's really something I can easily incorporate into this because I'm already doing this. But that's one of the components that I know teachers previously said, I really don't know how to teach the listening piece or how they even assess it, but something that they can kind of look at and look at sample questions and that kind of thing. So
Do the frequency of data meetings, does that vary from building to building?
yes.
And who is that? Is that driven by the principal primarily? Or-
I think so, yeah. I know Henry Wilson
Has been
has
at
one per
least.
month. Valley View, I think, has one per benchmark. Each time they give the STAR assessment, they have data meetings that follow that. So basically, I think it mostly follows the schedule in which they assess and collect data on their students, so which does vary between buildings, I believe.
And it also varies according to when you have a student who is on a more frequent monitoring because of
Exactly.
RTI,
Mm-hmm.
their data is analyzed more frequently.
Mhm.
It might not be the entire group if someone's receiving enrichment. So that part varies.
Okay, thanks. Other questions? Or-
I just have kind of a question. The 12th grade
Mhm.
had some sort of a test or whatever it was on that same day.
Mhm.
Does that give us any quantifiable data that we can then use to compare going forward, or is that, what
That
exactly
one-
was that event?
The ASVAB, if I remember correctly, is more of a career readiness measure. So it kind of gives them, it's not really necessarily an achievement test per se, but it will give them recommendations for, pursuit of a math career versus a engineering career versus a services kind of a broad view of, kind of like a general skill, I think, is that?
Yeah, it's
is that-
kind of an
okay.
interest survey in
Yeah.
terms of based on how you answer, it can kind of, in what you feel you're good at, it can kind of predict
Yeah.
what jobs you would be
Right.
best suited for.
Oh, yes, I've seen lots of universities do that with their incoming freshmen at orientation. It'd be nice if students were doing that, maybe sophomore year of high school, not really. By the time you've picked your college and your major, it's kind of like,
Yeah, or before you decide
Monday
to
morning
go
quarterback.
to Lakes Region, if
Yeah.
you already know that
Exactly.
you're interested in it.
And students will have access to some of those pieces too through Naviance that we're putting in place for the high school for next year. So
Excellent.
that's not completely held off until it's too late. And you can
Right.
always change a major, come on.
I'm thinking of a career change myself.
Any other questions for Mrs. LaFave? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Warrant Article 14 was the petition warrant article, which passed, and it was that we advised us to look at 4 different positions that were outlined in that petition warrant article. Again, it is just an advising warrant article, but taking under advisement means discussing it and looking at some information, so I've asked Ms. Vaughn to, she's prepared a presentation, so we can take a look at those positions a little closer.
Did you purposely skip over the van thing until after this?
Did I miss something?
Yeah, you skipped over the van purchase.
I think somebody's trying to, van purchase on mine.
I don't either.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh. I didn't have van purchase on my agenda, so we can certainly do that first while you're setting up.
That would be great.
Okay, sorry I missed it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, so I guess we're gonna have to have a discussion about a van purchase.
So included in your Google Drive are the documents for, this is in reference to the warrant article number 7 that was approved by the voters for the district to be able to replace our old van that's used for pupil transportation. We really weren't expecting at this point that it would not pass inspection. We didn't think it was going to happen this soon, but it did. So it cannot be on the road at all. Besides that, we've made other arrangements with another district to help us out just in the short term. Working with Mrs. Tellis, we contacted 3 dealerships, Tri-City Dodge in Somersworth, Poolin Auto Country in Rochester, and Foss Motors in Exeter, and asked them to provide us for an apples-to-apples pricing on a Dodge, 2018 Dodge Caravan. So pricing, Tri-City Dodge came in at the lowest at $22,805. Poolin came in at $24,035, and Foss Motors came in at $23,006 with a perk of 8 oil changes over the next 2 years at any Dodge dealer.
Do we know how much an oil change typically is?
For a
us.
van, might be about 30, 35, but then they're also doing, other things as well.
Yeah.
When our vehicles do go to DePrizio's, but I mean,
Yeah, okay.
and the local, they do treat us right. They do, they don't necessarily always charge for everything. Our recommendation is that we go with Tri-City Dodge, in the amount of $22,805.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Moran to accept the recommendation of Tri-City Dodge at $22,505. Second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion? Mrs. McElhenney?
I know it's not included in this price, but in regards to costs, I'm assuming that we need to also have it fitted to represent the Farmington School District. Do we have a cost for?
So that's all
lettering?
part of that warrant article, right. So that costs, the lettering would have to be new. Mrs. Tellis would take care of that. That might be $75, $80. We'll take the existing lighting from the existing van and have that retrofitted for this van, so that would be something that DePrizio's would do for us, or maybe even Tri-City would work it out for us, but we really can't bring the other van on the road. I'm really not looking to have them do that, driving an uninspected van.
So Tri-City, like the others, gave us a no-trade pricing, but then they're going to allow us, are they going to take it and basically scrap it for us? or-
That would be part 2 of this transaction, actually, because we never asked what a trade would be.
Yeah.
So what I would be looking to do is to have the board approve the low bidder, Tri-City,
Mhm.
and then the second part would be, okay, you would have to declare the other van as surplus, and
Right,
would you?
right. We have a whole process for that,
Yeah, I would be looking as
see.
a 2-part
Okay.
vote.
So really, the recommendation is to award the bid to Tri-City Dodge in the amount of $22,805,
Correct.
and then
Yeah.
getting rid of the 2007
All right,
with
so
its
I-
own process. Is that
Yes.
acceptable
Can
to
we
you?
accept, make that change to your
Yeah.
motion?
And I'll-
All set? Okay. Was that what you were going to discuss?
Well, I was going to bring that up, but I do have other questions. So you mentioned that another school district is helping us out with the need
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
usually use the
Yes.
2007 van for.
Yeah.
Is that daily?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
And then, did we obtain 3 bids for the bodywork for the 2007 van, where it says that the estimated cost is $3,000 for the bodywork due to rust, severe rust?
No, but we're not surprised that it didn't pass inspection, because this is why we had the warrant article. But no, we don't, we only have one price. We only have one price. We knew eventually it was not going to be roadworthy. We just
Right.
didn't expect it to happen so
Yeah.
soon.
I was surprised to hear that we could inspect a van in March. I would think that all of our vehicles are purchased over the summer or something. and
No,
they're going
actually,
to be doing
March is
inspection.
the anniversary for doing school districts.
Oh, man, that is a mismatch of timing.
That's the whole revenue. That's like leasing vehicles
Right.
are done in December. And school, that's how you even out your revenue stream, the state.
So everything
yeah.
doesn't happen in the summertime.
Motorcycles are in June, and, yeah.
Why
was
didn't-
thinking.
Why didn't we offer it as trade? I mean, why declare it surplus and then have to go and deal with it after
Actually,
the fact?
we never, they came back to me Friday morning and said, geez,
I want that
we'll
van."
reduce it by another $300. In other words, our solicitation did not even take into consideration the van.
But
Yeah,
could it take into consideration the van?
yes,
Yeah, but I don't.
yes.
I'm
We-
just
we
thinking
would
it
have
be
to-
one less step for us to do later.
Yes.
Well, by law, we really do have to declare it surplus and go out and get 3 bids on what we can get for it. Yeah, it would be easier, but we can't.
Okay.
This could turn out to be the best offer, $300, but I don't think so. I think someone's gonna fix it up and turn around and sell it.
Yeah.
I think we could get some good money back for it. Just my
But,
gut.
the motion is to do all that in one whack, right?
No,
No,
we haven't declared it surplus yet.
right, it has to be its own
Two
separate
motions.
action.
What is the motion on the floor, though?
The
I
motion is
thought we
to
amended it
accept the Tri-City Dodge at the,
at the 22,805?
22,805.
Okay, that was the change to the
Right.
motion, because I restated it as 22,505. Okay,
Thanks.
all right.
But there's a second part of all of this, right? We're actually not approved by the warrant to expend and get reimbursed from the trust until next school year, after July 1, right?
Well, we are now agents to expend for this particular
For the
capital reserve.
Capital reserve, that's right.
So we are doing some double checking to make certain, before we go and obligate ourselves, that it's, that we can actually do this now.
But if we are able to do so, we would look to set a public hearing
Yes.
and go ahead and hold that and move forward, rather than trying to wait the school year and do that.
Right,
Or
and
try
budget.
to do a purchase against that summer expenditure and then, try to credit next year's account toward this and back. And it's going to be cleaner if we can just use that agents to expend, and we will do the public hearing. We need to, it has to be posted for 7 days.
So,
So,
just a quick question. The allowance for the old van of 300, are we reducing the amount we're paying for the van to 22,505, which was the original motion?
If you so choose to declare the old van as surplus.
if you
Should we
declare the
have
old van as
reimbursed?
surplus and you are giving, then you would be trading it in
Yep.
to Tri-City. If you just declare it as surplus and you're looking to go out to 3 bids to get.
Then I've gotta run an
other-
ad in
Then
the
that's
paper.
different.
Right.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what we
You do
have
have
to
to
do, don't we?
declare it
Isn't
as
that what you said we
surplus.
have to do?
If we have, as a board, we have the authority to bypass the bidding process for surplus, if we have the right, we'd have to look up the law on that one, but if we have the right conditions by which to say, we can bypass the surplus and bidding. Remember what we have to do with school buses every
Right,
time as well.
right.
But, well, we can get a lot more than $300 for this, I think.
Okay, so you want to leave it at
That's fine.
22,805?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Putting the information out
I
to
w-
you
I
as it
wouldn't
was
suggest-
provided to
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to go with Tri-City Dodge for the amount of 22,805.
One more
Further
question.
discussion, yeah?
So what account number would we pay out of?
This would be off of the balance sheet, so this would be a prepaid expense.
Mhm.
You have it, so it creates a liability against the 18-19 budget.
Mhm. And the auditors have the authority to give us a recommendation on this whole,
It's
you know,
an
pre-buying?
accounting. It's an accounting question, yeah.
Okay,
It's an accounting question, but we've had to do that before when, I'm trying to think of an example here,
Mhm.
where we had to prepay something.
Can't help you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I think, I mean, I have an old entry on my mind that we had to prepay for a contract to get some software going. But to be able to secure the process for the software, but it was against a future budget. So you did it as a prepaid expense, but you got to make certain that you have to clean your general ledger up and expense it properly,
Right,
so.
okay. Just where you were saying that the trustee, we would get reimbursement from the trustees of the trust funds, to me, that would say that there's an account number we would use to expense it and then get reimbursed.
Yeah, I provide a whole packet. They don't really, they're not concerned about the account number.
Okay.
What they're looking, trustees would be looking for all the backup documentation from the school board, how we went about doing this purchase.
That the
et
warrant was
cetera.
approved. So then, just for good measure and diligence, if the bid is not awarded tonight, what is the backup plan? Would it be to continue to, to enter into a contract with this other district to provide the transportation service?
They're helping us out right now because we have to transport some special education students.
Yeah,
So if we're not awarding it, I can only cross my fingers that these vehicles are still available. Right now is a big sales time for 2018 vehicles because 2019 are coming off the line. So I might have to start the whole process over if the vehicle's not available or they can't locate a vehicle.
right. But in terms of if we say we don't want to go into this business of pre-buying,
Right now, the other district is helping us out. Whether or not they're going to be able to do that long-term, I mean,
Yeah.
if we're looking at a couple of
Yeah.
weeks, maybe, if I say, how's June 25th feeling to you?
Yeah.
That might not be as, we'd probably have to work some other things out.
and then alternatively, you'd have to go out and go out for bid on the repair work, the
Potentially.
$3,000 repair work, right? And then we would be repairing a van that we were planning to replace.
Correct.
Anyway.
And it may not be done in time to be used.
You'd have to still make the arrangement with the other district to transport the student while the 2007 van is being repaired and re-inspected.
Correct.
Okay. Alternatively, there's 11 weeks of school left. A rental Monday through Friday is about $250 a week.
We cannot rent a van to transport students. It is against the law.
Okay, thank you.
We looked. We can't.
Any other discussion?
They're all different.
Yes.
Just on the optional equipment, you guys have indicated that you want the Uconnect voice command with Bluetooth. Is that typical of something that we purchase for vans?
Pretty much, yes, because if a call, if a driver does need to take a call, Bluetooth is acceptable for a bus driver, for a van driver transporting students, as long as they're not using their handheld device.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
I'll entertain another motion.
I'll entertain a motion, no, I won't entertain it. I will motion to declare the old van as surplus.
Second.
We want to add in that we want to go out to,
Well,
do we need to make?
It has to go out to bid.
So a motion by Mrs. Moore and a second by Mr. Frieda to declare the old van as surplus. Any further discussion?
Just another point of order, do we need to also indicate that that amount will go toward offsetting the price of this?
We
It-
could.
vote?
It won't net, well, I mean, whatever you
Goes
get
into
could
the
go
general
toward
fund.
that part, yes.
We could.
I just didn't know if you had to designate where the,
It
what the.
it basically is going
surplus
to come
will
in
go
as
toward.
other revenue, so I mean, I wouldn't go to offset it an expense. It's a revenue. I want to be able to show it, that if you're going to have me sell it off, let it show as a revenue, that's what it is. It's not a reimbursement. Yeah. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we're gonna
Thank
talk
you.
about Article 14.
Thanks for humoring on my question.
I feel like I'm wiggling all over.
So, for our deliberative session, there was a petition article that was brought forward. It's by petition, we, the citizens of the town of Farmington, New Hampshire, petition the Farmington School Board to eliminate the following positions from School Administrative Unit 61 and the Farmington School District: Curriculum Director, Business Administrator, Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent, Administrative Assistant to the Special Education Director. Due to the fact that Middleton School District no longer belongs to SAU 61, eliminating these positions is justified and warranted. Because the town of Middleton left SAU 61, Farmington School District has approximately 1,000 students. With a smaller amount of students, we believe that having just a superintendent, a school board, principals, and assistant principals is sufficient enough to effectively operate an SAU and school district of this size. The elimination of these positions will save the taxpayers of this town approximately $325,000 annually between salaries and benefits by petition. As was discussed at the deliberative session, this article was advisory, or is advisory, meaning that the school board is not obligated to act upon it, but is certainly taking under advisement that it's something that should be discussed and considered. For this petition article as well, the $325,000 is not an automatic cut from the operating budget. It merely states that eliminating the positions would save about that much. It is not a directive to do that, and under RSA, the school board is the only one who can determine to instate a position or to cut a position. That authority rests with the school board, not with the governing or the legislative body that was present at the deliberative session or at the polls. So taking them in order, the director of curriculum was referred to as the curriculum coordinator's position. This person oversees curriculum instruction and assessment for the district at all levels. But that's not all this person does. This person oversees professional development for staff, serves as the homeless liaison, arranging coordination of services and transportation with other districts, currently serving 48 students. Functions as the homeschool contact, and we have probably around 50 homeschoolers as well in the district, and manages most grant projects for the district: Title I, Title IIA, Title IVA, Title VI, robotics, And if you look at the grant revenue over multiple project years, which tend to be open, one project runs for maybe 27 months, so you have this year's allotment, that next year's allotment, plus a little bit hanging on. This person oversees more than $1 million worth of grant revenues in multiple project years. There's a lot to this position. It's not just, so what reading book you're using today. It's not just looking at the assessments once a year. And this more than pays for that position. But looking at that whole piece, if we were to contract this position out, really the only part would be just the supervisor's curriculum instruction and assessment. These other pieces would not be part of a contracted service. The business administrator oversees the business office, payroll, accounts payable, federal grants, and human resource functions. This person oversees relations with the food service contractor, does all reporting for the Departments of Labor, Education, and Revenue Administration regarding finances and regarding any labor issues. Manages the free and reduced price meals program, coordinates the district budgeting process, processes unemployment and workers' compensation claims, is in charge of the bidding and vendor process, is in charge of compliance and oversight for facilities, financials, and food service, and provides oversight and coordination for the facilities and transportation departments as well. With food service and free and reduced lunch alone, these programs are growing in that as we have more students receiving assistance, overseeing that part becomes more and more of an oversight issue. However, these other pieces, overseeing business office, food service, would not be passed on to a contracted service provider. Under the Internal Revenue Service Tax Code, independent contractors cannot be integrated into an institution's operations, and they do not serve as supervisors. And so if we were to contract someone to just do the budget oversight, to just look at the payroll, they might look over those pieces, but they are not the ones who would be supervising and evaluating any of the staff in those positions. If we were to contract for these positions, curriculum work, qualified subcontracted rates are currently $115 an hour for curriculum. Don't listen. We don't want to lose you. Minimum coverage at 24 hours a week for 36 weeks would result in a bill of $99,360 for the year. That would not include coverage for summer work, orchestrating summer professional development, or other non-curriculum related duties, such as any of the grants oversight. Current business administrator rates, if we were to contract this out, are $105 an hour. Previously, the district had coverage when we used a service in interim, 3 days a week for 52 weeks. At the current rate, that would cost the district $131,040. That would not include her other functions related to oversight of the food service contracts, meals programs, or HR. The administrative assistant to the superintendent, this position was cut in 2016. Most of those duties were then absorbed by the business administrator and myself. We did some of them sort of well, and some of them not so well. This person manages scheduling, correspondence for the SAU office, attendance filing, oversight of minutes, and documentation of board meetings. She handles reception and phone coverage. She processes free and reduced meal enrollment. She updates the SAU website, coordinates state reporting for my office, manages the swipe card access system, maintenance of facilities requests and physical plant records. She maintains personnel files and is in charge of the new hire process. She makes new employee packets, she coordinates employment postings, maintains AppleTrack and EdJobs, and she processes the PSS forms with me and with the business office. She's working about 27 hours a week and does all of this. And in reality, she's my assistant, but she's shared with the business administrator and the facilities manager. She's working on pieces for all three of us and manages to keep my desk fairly cleared off, which is very, very helpful rather than watching the pile start to slide. I appreciate that.
Did you want this to be seen from home?
Yes.
Cannot
'cause
see it from home.
They can't see this
No,
from home?
just not.
Okay. The administrative assistant to student services or special education handles state reporting, and there are more than 35 distinct reports annually. She handles correspondence for the department. This is including but not limited to special education documents, truancy documentation, paperwork for court-ordered placements, billing oversight for Medicaid, and that's huge. Also, she processes special education aid, formerly known as catastrophic aid. She does the Nessus reporting, Power School imports for special education, troubleshoots pieces for case managers and related service providers, and most of what she does is in direct line of maintaining compliance and billing for revenue owed to the district. Both of those functions affect our bottom line profoundly. Presently, this person works 35 hours a week. Any questions about these 4 positions?
I understand the 2 admins are hourly. Are the other 2 positions salary?
Yes, they are.
For the curriculum director of assessment and instruction as well, you were able to quantify the grant dollars that are brought in, accredited mostly to that one position. Could you do something similar on this one in terms of the majority dues pertaining to compliance and billing for revenue owed to the district for services? Just a rough number?
I would say whatever our revenues in terms of Medicaid, because that is part of what she has to do in terms of connecting the right providers and the right rehabilitative providers or paraprofessionals. I mean, so there's that, special education aid, all of that she reports for. And also 402, if we have a student who is placed out of district by a court action, we are entitled to recoup a portion of that up to a certain cap. So
Right.
that she's also responsible for as well. So
Okay, but we don't have a rough number? Is
I
it in
can
the
take a look and see if I can
hundreds of
find-
thousands, tens of thousands?
Was our
In
Medicaid,
terms,
Close to
in
a
terms
million?
of your Medicaid,
our Medicaid
I mean,
revenue.
we take in our share, the net share after we split with the state, is about $150,000 a year.
Thank you.
Catastrophic aid, it is prorated based upon
However many people apply in the
however,
state,
right,
yeah.
basically, I think we're talking a $3.6 million budget.
That gets split over.
Did I get that right? Then it's
Split up.
prorated, whatever is available that is split between all the districts throughout the state.
Right, okay.
So, depending on those claims, I mean, historically, the proration has been about 62%. So we've seen anywhere between $35,000 and $75,000 that she has to go over fine tooth, hour by hour, to be able to allocate.
And
Yeah,
justify
you have to
the
It's very
report in
precise
certain,
compliance.
Very
yeah, you have to,
much.
you
All
have
the
to report in
services.
15-minute increments in terms of services that
Wow.
the child is entitled to. And so that has to be broken down in terms of how it's submitted into Nessus, which is our IEP and tracking for any invoices that we might get that relate to students that fall in that category.
Thank you, thank you.
So what would the cost be to do as the warrant article suggested? it sounds like it's going to cost more than the $325,000.
It would cost a great deal more, even if you just looked at cutting the positions and, one, you're going to have unemployment insurance that would kick in there, which would probably be anywhere from, it would probably run
It's about 11,000.
about
per
11,000 per person.
Right.
So that's $44,000 there. If you look at having to contract out for the 2 administrative positions, that's another $230,000 or so for minimum, and then we don't have any of the grants oversight, we don't have the free and reduced lunch oversight, we don't have those other pieces. When the administrative assistant positions were collapsed previously, the business administrator and myself picked up most of those additional duties. If the business administrator's position goes as well, that means that I'm potentially picking up at least 3. That would mean that Mrs. Janita would be picking up her assistance pieces. I'd be doing 3 more people's work. She'd get an extra person. There's no way I can do business administrator and curriculum coordinator and try to keep track of all of the other pieces.
By law, don't you have to have a business administrator?
Actually, by law, we don't have to. You have to have someone qualified to do that. I have a CAGS, but I don't have an MBA. So while I understand the budgeting process, that's not where my strengths lie. And I really would be very, 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 very hesitant to try to go into a budget process without Lori or somebody right next to me, because while I can do it, it takes more than one set of eyes going over those budget lines to really do it right.
Does the, if I may, does the state require a credential, the Department of Ed, to
For business?
require a credential for business administrator?
Yes.
What is
at
that
least They don't require, but you do have one. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do, and I do maintain my certification.
Right, but my question is, does the state require, you have to have a certain credential?
I have to have a certain credential.
Does the business administrator?
Well, because I don't have to have a business administrator, I could have a bookkeeper, but it's not the same level of expertise coming in to oversee pieces.
Right. Does the state require a special credential for a curriculum coordinator?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So if you want to be a curriculum coordinator, you have to get a certain credential and pay for that credential at the state level,
Yes,
okay?
there's a separate certification for that.
Is it a CAGS?
It's at least a master's.
Uh-huh, okay.
It's a district administrative.
And a CAGS, for those of you watching at home, is a Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies.
It's a doctorate without the dissertation,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay, that was my other question is, the numbers that you threw out when you talked about the curriculum coordinator and the business administrator as far as what a contracted service, where do we get those numbers?
Those numbers were, I looked at 2 or 3 different groups that provide those services for contract and looked at the average.
Okay.
So,
When you say groups,
there are businesses that contract out these positions. So you can kind of do like a rent an assistant superintendent for curriculum.
yeah.
You can do a,
Like MRI.
a MRI.
Well, I was just going to ask, I could
Yes.
not remember the name of the organization where
Yeah.
Carolyn Rio
Municipal
worked for us.
resources.
And so that hourly rate, did that come from, are they an example?
Actually, that's 2 years ago. That
Okay.
was a rate that
Yes.
they provided to another district that you were
Yeah.
with 2 years ago to do some work for them.
Okay. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
Question. So essentially, the bottom line here is if we were to consider removing these positions, the only financially responsible choice we would have is to have it absorbed through the existing administration, which I really am not in favor of. However, my other question, though, is that even possible? Is it allowable for one person to, for example, write a grant for another portion that you'd be overseeing in another capacity? Is there any conflict of interest in regards to that?
Right now, the way that, potentially, right now, the way that the grants are written, there are a number of checks and balances. Melissa would be the project manager, but I have a federal funds bookkeeper that oversees those pieces. Everything comes to me for approvals and sign-off. Any expenditures that are made get reported to the state. It comes to me. I have to approve the report. It then comes back, and so there's 2 or 3 people who have to sign off on each step. It's not just write a grant, get some money. So.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought.
So all of these positions as described really seem like they're administrative of the structure of the school district. So is it fair to assume that these are independent of the number of students we have in our district? These functions?
They really are. I mean, certainly there are workloads that fluctuate to some extent with the number of students. If we only had 2 free and reduced lunch students, then there would not be as much to do there. But you still have to develop a budget. You still have to oversee payroll. The curriculum, the assessment pieces, the professional development, all of that needs to happen regardless. If we were to lose another 100 students tomorrow, we still have teachers who need professional development. We still need a curriculum that needs to be aligned. We still need to do competency work. We still need to look at all of these other pieces that, while I do have background in that and I've done it, I do have a few other things on my plate and reports that I have to do for the state, that it doesn't matter if I have 10 students or 1,000 students, the number of reports and the pieces that I need to put together are the same. So in that, no, it doesn't really matter a whole lot there.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the current salary for the curriculum coordinator is $85,000.
That was the budgeted, it's a little bit lower than that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
They looked at what was budgeted before we had a shift.
Okay. So it's, I see what it is. With the benefit package, what does the benefit package add to that salary line?
I'm trying to get onto the hard drive. I didn't.
Well, I mean, we can do rough numbers. Do you know
Right.
off the top of your head what the benefit package is for?
Family insurance?
So, I believe. Okay, so with everything, New Hampshire retirement, yes, all benefits, FICA and everything, came to $98,745.
Okay. And for the business administrator line would be, what, would be about 100? If I'm looking at the lines correctly?
Let me see here. Yes, it would be.
Okay. Other questions?
Do all 4 positions receive full benefits?
No. No, the 2 administrative assistants do not receive full benefits. Yeah,
Am I allowed to speak? Do you mind if I speak to something?
Go ahead.
Is that okay? With respect to the actual language of the petition itself, it does refer to that now that Middleton has left the district, that there's probably an expectation that there's still, there's more free time. But in reality, Middleton contributed 12% to the apportionment of the SAU. To be able to manage our time, there was a point where we said, okay, how are we going to be dividing up our time between the districts? Because obviously that 12%, there was an inequity, and so we had to look at it in terms of time. So I had to really manage my time in terms of, okay, that 12% equated to about 5 hours a week that I would devote to Middleton. It still also meant the same types of reports, the municipal statement reports, and, oversight of payroll, accounts payable, vendors, things like that, unemployment, workers' comp. But then the other side of it is that, although it's a 12%, 5 hours a week that I would have to devote my time to working with Middleton, we also had lost the other full-time HR person. So that was 40 hours, so that was 2,080 hours a year, and we never replaced that position. We also lost another position, and of which we're fortunate, we have brought back part-time the administrative assistant. That differential is 1,430 hours. So in the past 2.5 years, the existing staff, including Melissa, Diana, all of us, have absorbed 3,510 hours worth of more work that other people did. So we're operating pretty lean, right? We're lean, but we've figured out, we've got some good efficiencies, we've got some good processes. I'd like to feel that we do respond to people, but it's 3,510 hours that we've had to absorb over the last 2.5 years. That's a lot.
And that doesn't include the technology secretary either,
That's correct.
who did
That is
I-4C and those
correct.
other pieces, which Melissa and I now split.
Yeah.
So,
That was an assistant director of technology. I don't think it was a secretary.
she was
Yes,
listed
secretary.
under the secretary's
part of support,
positions. She was part of the
I've
support
never-
staff.
She might have been, it was never referred to as that, though.
I
It was
understand that.
always referred to as assistant, like
Well,
assistant director or something.
She was the assistant for the IT department.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah,
I never really heard it referred to as a secretary, because there's,
right.
yeah, I don't want to go there.
No,
but-
we won't go.
Reporting.
What do we say to the taxpayer who says, well, geez, and Diana, I'm going to let you answer this. We've got this position that supports your department that's at 35 hours. Man, let's shave off 6 hours a week, get it down to 29, don't have to pay benefits. What do we say to that?
I say that the needs, while we've lost some students, the needs have not decreased in terms of the things we have to do. I mean, my assistant accompanies me on home visits. I mean, we did 10 of those this week. That was unusual, but we're seeing times where we have to continue to do that. She's responsible for when I can't be in the office because I'm at the meeting or I'm attending something else, for contacting people that I, like, please call this parent because we need to make contact and have a conversation. That's not something I can hand off to a case manager to do because they're in the classrooms, they're teachers. She has to maintain our special education files. If people call requesting information and proper documentation, she makes sure that they've done that. We've had a lot of people that have been calling in looking for past documentation because they're applying for disability. That's her going into the stacks of files that we have and finding that information. And that's not a small chunk of time either. That's something that, unfortunately, if we were shaving off hours, that's something, because it's not necessarily high priority, is going to fall to the bottom of the list, but it's something very important to someone who's calling our district, saying, I'm now in a position where I'm applying for disability and I need this documentation. So it's those sort of things that I think people don't see in just the title of assistant, that are done on a daily basis, that are really very important. I mean, we filled out 3 forms this week, copying paperwork for students that are applying for disability. I mean, that's somebody's, compensating their livelihood, helping them stay on their feet. I mean, that's an important service that doesn't get done in a timely manner if I have to be out of the office because I'm at the meeting, or I'm attending a court hearing, or I'm observing a student who's new to our district. I really do rely on her for those sorts of things. And she has a great ability, that position in particular, of being able to talk to people and explain processes in my absence. If somebody needs to apply for Medicaid or sign some Medicaid paperwork, she's able to manage that. She's a notary. We had to go to someone's house the other day because I needed a notarized form. She went with me so that we could find this parent who didn't have transportation, but we were in a situation where we desperately needed to get a signature on somebody. It's those sorts of things that you can't necessarily quantify in a job description.
Good answer.
So it sounds to me like even though the number of students in the district don't necessarily affect our need for this organizational infrastructure, administration of the district, the opposite is not true. If these positions were missing, they would really adversely affect our student population because they would be suffering for lack of services and organization in a well-run district.
I would go a little further here and caution people, and I get why people look at positions and say, do we really need that? Geez, we've lost some students, we might be able to cut that. I would caution folks to make a judgment or an assumption on what a position really entails by seeing snapshots of it. I used to think that Mr. Beaupre, my high school principal, had the best job ever because he stood in the intersection. That's the only time I saw him. Or when he walked through the classrooms, and I thought, oh, that'd be a great gig. And then later on in life, I became a principal, and there was a little bit more to it than that. So I say that jokingly, but I say it seriously too, is to. I didn't know she accompanied you to home visits, and that's smart. Because otherwise you have to, right, well, yeah, you have to go with somebody, but it's smart to bring her, otherwise who do you bring? The case manager, and you're pulling services away from kids. That's probably not a bad idea. So.
And the SRO isn't necessarily a notary.
That individual here on campus.
Right. Yes.
Essentially, I think one of the probably driving forces behind this warrant article was the fact that Middleton did leave, and that there wasn't much mention of positions changing as a result of a decrease in the student body. However, you guys did mention tonight, and perhaps you can just expand a little bit, there were positions that were either eliminated or reduced as a result of this change. Perhaps if we could just make that known. Sure. That there were steps taken to.
In 2016, before I was hired, the technology assistant's position was eliminated. The assistant HR retired and was not replaced. The administrative assistant to the superintendent's position was cut. I did my own last year. That was fun. I managed to keep up with most things, but frankly was drowning in paperwork, and certainly was nowhere near as efficient, and now I feel like we have a much better handle on many of the pieces that I need to be able to get out to the public, minutes and those things, having things posted in a more timely manner and whatnot. Other positions that were absorbed.
The HR position was eliminated in 2015. So there was a year where the remaining support staff absorbed all of her work and divided it up. It didn't go to the schools.
When Middleton decided to leave, in anticipation of knowing that they were leaving at that point, it was like a 2-year cycle. 2-year phase out where we lost the middle and high school students and then the elementary students. We did lose things like para hours get severely cut. We lost some programming, we lost some positions. We haven't, not all that has even been replaced. We we dusted ourselves off, as we said we were going to do, and try to be the best district, smaller district than we used to be. And we've been able to get paras hours back. The community's been supportive of reinstituting some programs. But we did take a hit, and we've slowly tried to get back some things that we think are really important.
Just another point of order, I guess, for people to understand that. I think we did a really good job because we didn't fire people outright. We lost some teachers and some paras, but they retired and we didn't replace them. And sometimes that's not noticed by the public. So it seems like we're not losing those positions, but we really are. So I think we did a lot of due diligence when this happened. And we also did it with as little pain to people as possible, which is really a good thing.
So that's what we did. We took it under advisement. We do have, in non-public session, we're going to be looking at some cuts to our budget that we have to make some decisions on. And so we'll do that probably later on. Any other comments on what we just saw for information?
I just like to thank everybody for putting all this stuff together for us to consider. It's very helpful.
Yes, thank you.
While we're under new business, we do have an application for a recording secretary. It's been a while since we've had to bring one on board. What's the board's thoughts on potentially hiring this applicant, or at least taking a look at this applicant for potential hire? Does the board want to do an interview with the person? Does the board want to have Ruth Ellen do it? Does a board member or two want to help Ruth Ellen? It's really, I don't know how we've done it before. Penny, you probably know better than
I was
anyone.
just going to suggest that Ruth Ellen hire the minute taker, and we just kind of make a judgment call on how well she does. And through working, yeah. I mean, there's no better way to look at an applicant than through their work. So, I mean, if that works for everybody else.
And my understanding is this applicant has some experience working for municipalities, so, is that board okay with that, having Ruth Ellen reach out to that
I
individual?
think Ruth Ellen will look at the candidates the exact same way we would,
Yep.
with the same lens.
Okay, that's how we're gonna do that.
All right, thank you.
Under old business, we have the second read policies. If the board anticipates this discussion on these, I would almost like to entertain a motion to table, because I anticipate a lengthy non-public tonight. And we've got a lot on non-public tonight. So what's the board's?
Has everyone made a first read? Because I'll move to accept as a second read.
I so moved. Second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion on a second read.
And that's pertaining to policies JFABD, JFAB, JCA, and JEC.
Any discussion?
I just have one point that we might want to consider on, I don't know which policy it is. It's the homeless one, though, because it
Yes.
refers to, what is it?
JFABD.
JFAD refers to a
ABD.
definition under No Child Left Behind, and I wonder if we shouldn't update the definition of homeless, and I'm not sure that it has, but the McKinney-Vento Act was amended a little bit, so we might want to consider putting the policy, putting in our policy the definition according to the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is the new one.
Would amending the motion to a final read affect discussion, you think?
On that one, it will.
Okay. Then let's just do the second reads. Okay. Any further discussion?
We need to have Penny here for this motion.
All those in favor? Aye, for a second read. Thank you.
And next time around, we will likely have another set as well that maybe a little bit more time sensitive regarding graduation requirements and whatnot in line with the schedule and student handbook and what have you, so.
Does anybody have other? I have some
Well,
things I'm going to
actually,
announce.
I wanted to bring up something under old business, actually.
Okay?
Last meeting, the board made a motion and approved to pay out some of the funding designated for paying a recording secretary to me for my services conducted. I very much appreciate the recognition of the work that I've done. However, I'd much prefer that that funding stay within the general fund for use on students and programming and everything else that's already been planned.
Why do you think we
So
made
I
this motion
appreciate
when
it.
you weren't here?
I know. But I just want you to know, I very much appreciate the recognition for payment for recording secretary services, but
Big surprise.
I was gone.
no, we're still under old
We're
business.
on old business.
So thank you very much, but
Okay.
I
Okay,
recuse
well,
myself from
we at
any
least know
such
how we
additional
feel.
fund. Thank you. Thank you.
Any old business or others? We have some announcements. Mrs. Moran, you have a couple of things you wanted to talk about?
Just I wanted to let everybody know that the Health and Wellness Fair is Thursday at 5 o'clock at Henry Wilson. There's a variety of vendors that'll be there and services available again. And then Friday, here at the high school, there's a blood drive from 1 to 6.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Frieda?
Yeah, I just have something very exciting and a proud moment for our school district. The White House has a White House Easter egg roll annually, and this year, as part of the decorating scheme of that event, every state submitted an egg design, which they put about in the egg roll for people to see. And our art teacher, Kim Smith, Cindy Hoon, Pam Skeffington, Carrie Fredo, and Tom Pringle were all involved in having a little contest, and Farmington's egg was in the White House egg roll as definition, as a decoration representing New Hampshire. So congratulations to everyone.
Can we see it at some point? Will we have a
There are
image
pictures
of it
up at
somewhere?
the school, and I will get a snapshot and
I can
send that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Oh,
awesome.
can you? Yeah, I'd like to see it,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. I did not know about that, that's
No,
exciting.
that is very cool.
We weren't
Mrs.
supposed to know, we
Cardinal.
weren't supposed to announce until after.
Oh,
That's fine.
okay.
After Easter egg roll.
I anticipate that Dr. Moore is probably going to cover this a little bit in her report at the next meeting, but do you want to quickly give us a snapshot of what happened at robotics this weekend, or? I'm so upset I couldn't make it.
Did you watch my
That was so
video?
cool. It
I didn't
was,
see
it
the
was
video.
live streaming on the computer as
Yeah,
well. That's okay.
Yeah, we'll
forgive
figure
you.
out a way to
It's all
kind
right.
of share that out with the community, because it's just such an exciting event. The folks who have gone to their first one this weekend were just blown away by what a production it is. It's a big deal. So schools from all over New England go to these events. This one was at UNH, and 42 teams were registered to compete. 41 actually competed. Farmington School District, it's our rookie year, and it was the second competition ever for this team, and they finished 34th out of the 41. You wouldn't believe like the camaraderie that happens in those pits when the kids are trying to figure out, and their mentors are trying to help each other figure out how to repair their robot if it's not working properly.
And they help each other. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And our mentor school ended up #1 for the whole
And who's on mentor school again?
Alton.
Oh, okay.
Big Bad Bob.
Yeah, I
Our
like
team's
it.
name is the Steam Makers. They're
Yeah.
they're super proud. I
Yeah.
bumped into them at Farmington House of Pizza that night, celebrating, playing pool as a team, celebrating with their coaches,
Yeah.
and then they realized they were on the cover of the Puddle Down Press right then as they were playing. It was just awesome. They're so proud,
That's
and it's
great.
great.
Thank
Someone
you.
who'd
It was
never
fun.
seen that was like the coolest thing I think I've seen.
Isn't it really
I'm-
neat?
It was awesome.
Yeah, that it's like a video game.
Super
They had to
techy,
move.
but-
And then our final announcement, which I'm very excited to announce, is that Mrs. Cardinal has been named a new member of the Board of Directors of the New Hampshire School Boards Association, representing the Southeast region. So congratulations, I think that's good for us. I'm excited that we've never had that, to my knowledge, so that's really exciting.
Yeah,
And thank you for showing interest in that and doing that.
it's going to be a lot of extra work, but I think it's going to be very meaningful. Anyone who has any, education or student youth-related concerns that they feel should be addressed at the state level, I can be your conduit for that. So don't hesitate, to bring up, if you read that there are bills in play in the state legislature that are going to, change something to either you really want to show some support for it, or you want to somehow try to get it revised or stopped. That is what our association does in many ways, is to voice those concerns.
I want to know how we can contend to be School Board of the Year some year.
We can apply. We can apply.
I
It's
looked
this
at that, I
month.
was like, I think we'll make it.
I think once our policy work is done, we really should apply.
Well, I think we should too.
Is there
Okay.
an award for getting the most number of policies done in the shortest amount of time?
Maybe some joke
Well,
one
if we
like
could
that.
just take the ones that just need readopting and just put those to the front, then we could get a big chunk
We
done.
cover.
Yeah, we have a few others that are a little more,
All right.
have to.
Okay, public participation. Yes. Yeah, please. Just so it can be recorded for the video.
Blanche Tanner again, Farmington resident taxpayer. I just want to say that one of the reasons that I started going to, and I mentioned this when I first started coming to these meetings and the town meetings, one of the reasons that I wanted to start actually coming to meetings is I find them very interesting, find them very educational, and I really would encourage people out there who might be listening to come to meetings or watch on TV or your other media that you watch it on, because rather than go by what we think, what we hear, you get the facts. The presentation tonight on the jobs, responsibilities, fabulous. And I really think that if people get to hear what's really going on, their opinions are going to change. And I just would encourage people to do that. I find coming to these meetings helpful. If I can't, try to get them on TV, but I always miss the timing of them on TV, but that's all right. And then, the town meeting, the selectmen, the budget committee, I find them very interesting, so I would encourage people to attend or watch, pay attention to what's going on, and then form an opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, I'll entertain, our next meeting, Monday, April 16th, right?
Yes.
April 16th at 6:30, right here. And at this time, I'll entertain thank you to those of you who came out this evening and those of you viewing from home. Next time, I believe we will be live next time. This is a taped version, but we'll be live next time. So thank you for tuning in. A motion to go into non-public 1 under RSA 91A:3, A, B, and C for resignations and nominations. So moved by Mrs. McElhenney, second by Mr. Frieda. All those in favor by roll? Aye. Good night.
Thank you.